Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
Welcome to the 22nd episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. On today's show, we're going to be chatting with Boondock Walker, a branding agency based in Cleveland, Ohio.
So here we are, another great episode, and so they were drinking lots of beer, but Kyle, you were drinking vodka.
Well, I had a beer at lunch.
Okay, so that counts.
And then you made me 2 strong vodkas, and I got no sleep last night.
Oh, excuses.
So
you're just a lightweight.
I'm a little wrecked today. Oh, lightweight. I could drink you under the table,
what a
young
me.
man.
I really enjoyed this one. They were having a blast. I think out of all our interviewees, I should say, I think they were probably having the most fun.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun. And it was a good chat. We talked about branding. We don't get to talk about branding too often, eh?
Oh, Yeah, usually it's digital. But these guys do some traditional stuff. It's nice to see some traditional folks still out there doing some branding. They're very focused on a good niche.
What is that niche?
That niche is healthcare.
Healthcare.
Yep.
They're health.
Right in Cleveland, the famous Cleveland Clinic. It's quite an area for health.
I didn't know that was
wellness.
A famous area for clinics.
Oh, yeah? Yes, it is.
Well, I guess you just know everything about the U.S., don't you?
Sometimes.
So what's so famous about it? Is it just a clinic there?
The Cleveland Clinic is known mainly for telemetry, which is heart, cardiovascular research, and they're just one of the world leaders in that.
Yeah.
And there's Cleveland clinics everywhere. Actually, my wife worked at a Cleveland clinic in Fort Lauderdale as a nurse.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know so much.
Well, near where I grew up, Boston, I mean, let's face it, it's one of the medical meccas of the world.
It's the mecca.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the interview, I know I seem like a wreck, but I'm going to make it through this. I published a blog post this week called "Sales Funnel Drying Up: 6 Ways to Quickly Generate New Leads." Do you ever have it? You ever have it happen where you just, all your leads are dried up, they either closed or you've invoiced them all, you got nothing.
Shaking the trees, trying to find someone.
The pipeline's starting to dry up.
Yep.
What do you do? What do you do, Captain Sales?
Just try harder and get out there. Go to more events.
What an actionable tip. Thank you. Okay, try harder.
Well, you do. You can't just roll over and play dead. You got to reinvent ways to find new leads.
That's true. Well, there's a few tips in this article. I would say the number one, which I know you would probably agree with, is call your existing clients.
Big time.
This isn't like long-term strategy stuff. This is just like, I need some new leads. You can't like plan something that's going to take months to implement. Marketing metrics, according to them, the probability of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%. The probability of selling to a new prospect is 5 to 20%.
That's even high.
You
Probably
think?
20% is high, yeah. But no, that makes a lot of sense.
But if it's written down on the internet, it's true.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So, first of all, call your existing clients. You should be keeping in touch with them anyway.
Yep.
Periodically send them new, hey, I think this article, you'd like it, or, whatever. There's ways to keep in touch with clients so that when you do make an ask, they're not like, oh, fuck, that Kevin, he's always trying to sell me. Right?
Where'd you get that from?
There's some other things in here. One thing that I've really liked doing now. I mean, this is something I've been doing a little bit of here and there for our company, but I think in general it's a good idea. So people talk about social selling and using Twitter and LinkedIn to sell, and I think that's fine and that works. There's a lot of noise on those platforms, and people tend to just gravitate to the biggest social channel. There's more users on Twitter, so they go after Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But there's smaller, lesser known sites out there that are doing user-generated content that actually I think are better sales channels. One of them being Quora. You ever heard of Quora?
I have heard of it.
So Quora is like people just ask questions and people answer them. But the nice thing is you can narrow down your interests or things that you know a lot about. So, in our case, because we target a lot of small to mid-sized agency owners, That's what I've got set up in my preferences. So you'll see people ask questions, like I've posted in the article. Somebody asked, what are the key profit drivers when running a design agency? They're just asking that question. You can go in and answer it, and then if people like your answer, if it's a good answer, they upvote it, and it gets pushed higher up, and better answers move higher up. So what you can do in those answers is you can just post like a really articulate, in-depth answer, and then post links to like your podcast or your blog or whatever, and you can get leads that way. The other article or the other site for that's really good is Clarity. Now we actually kind of know a little bit. We don't know him that well, but Dan Martell, big name in the startup world. Dan's built and sold a lot of businesses, so he actually just sold Clarity in the last 6 months. So Clarity is a site where people get answers to questions about running a business, mostly focused on kind of the tech startup space. So people, that's their kind of main business is people are looking for answers. So they find experts and book calls with them, but then they've got this answer section on their site where people ask questions and you can go in and answer them, and then you can actually get a call booked through Clarity. And I've had that a couple of times. There's more popular people I'm sure get booked a lot, but it's a nice way to make a little bit of side income, but also generate leads because you answer a question really well, and then say book a call. They do it right through the app. So it's kind of a good way. And actually in the post I show a little Google Analytics from Quora. Not huge numbers. Pardon me. Nothing crazy, but in the last few months, Quora brought 237 visitors and 15 leads, which is a 6.3 conversion rate.
That's good.
For, a handful of answers and 10 minutes of work. It's not bad.
Yeah, compared to probably Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, Twitter. I mean, the thing with Twitter, people aren't really on Twitter to buy.
No, well,
LinkedIn, they're there to connect, but you've got to really be right place, right time for Twitter and LinkedIn to work. I mean, I've been cold emailed. I get cold emailed all the time. I'm sure you do as well.
I do, yeah.
Rarely are you interested in what they're selling, but sometimes you are, and it's like maybe 1% of the time. You just happen to be like, oh, I wish I knew a company that could deliver video services because I'm in the market for a video.
It's lead sift.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. Yep.
But mostly Twitter people aren't there for that. But the nice thing about Quora and Clarity, and maybe there's other sites out there, is those are business people who are looking like they're desperate to find an answer to something. That's a perfect time to hit them. They want to know what you are teaching them. So that's another tip, and I'll post a couple ideas in there. One is attend local events. That can never hurt, right?
Oh, big time. Yep. I mean, local events are good depending on what you're selling, and even non-local events. I mean, you're heading out to San Francisco soon.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of conferences and events.
No,
but
this is going to be a good one.
I'm pretty excited. I'm also a little scared.
Are you?
Well, I've just been told at first I just thought Dreamforce was like, yeah, whatever, cool. But then I'm being told like, oh, it's like 100,000 people and it's crazy.
More than 100,000. I mean, you're gonna be watching Foo Fighters, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Hopefully. Apparently, I got to sign up for it.
You haven't signed up yet?
I don't know how.
Didn't Evan help you out with that?
He doesn't know where to. He said I should, but then I was like, where do you do it? And he's like, I don't know.
Did you go on the site?
Yes, I don't know how to do it.
You got to do it, man. You got to get in
I'll
there.
try.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a good opportunity.
Events. I tell a little story in the blog is when I first went freelance. I remember I didn't have a lot of clients. I had one client actually. That's the only reason I quit Modern, the name of the agency that we used to work at, to go freelance, is because I had one client that was paying me $3,400. Wow. Which was, comparable to my monthly salary at the time at this agency. And, I was basically like, I've got a month of work and I better find something. So to get new leads, I mean, I didn't really, all I knew was I was going to have to call people or something. But then I got invited to an event that Colin was at. And it was the AIM conference, the Atlantic Internet Marketing Conference.
I remember that conference well.
And at the time, I was marketing myself as a Flash developer for agencies that could also do CMS and stuff like that. And it worked. I didn't have to do any lead generation, prospecting, anything for about 6 to 8 months after that conference.
Yep.
Events can be really good for that.
Yeah, they can. Big time. Trade shows too.
So I think when you think of we even talked to Boondock Walker just now, and they said most of the majority of their leads were like 99% referral, and that's great. I mean, it means you've got a good reputation and people are referring you, but it's scary to rely on that, because if that ever dries up, you need a system.
And you got to start somewhere too.
Yeah,
like where they start, right? I mean,
what do you mean?
How do they get the momentum going to get to that point where they're getting 99% referrals?
True.
And some of our listeners are starting out.
That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, hope you find that helpful. I'd say let's just jump into the interview.
Let's go.
We're talking here with Brian Willse and Mark Nead and Megan Conway from Boondock Walker, based out of Cleveland, Ohio. They're a branding firm, and we're happy to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Okay, the first question, what kind of beer are you guys drinking?
I am drinking a Great Lakes IPA, a Commodore Perry.
I have a Slow Ride. It's from New Belgium, which is a Colorado craft brewery.
I am also drinking a New Belgium Blue Paddle Pilsner. The problem is there's 3 of us, and there's actually like 5 beers on the table. So there's also an Oculto tequila brewed beer, Blue Agave infused Oculto.
None of this sounds like a problem to me.
Nice.
Gesundheit.
You're talking to drunken Canadians, remember? Our beer's like 40%.
Yeah, it's thick.
It's a good problem.
Okay, so I want to find out, first of all, just a little background on Boondock Walker, how it came about, and what you guys are up to.
Okay.
Boondock Walker was formed in 2007. Mark and I both had our previous design companies, and as we got together, we decided to focus mainly on brand development, brand foundation. Along with our design and technology backgrounds, we formed the company to really help companies develop their brand, along with all the touch points that come out of that strong brand foundation.
So we're a hybrid. We don't get into a lot of the things that you'd see typical from an ad agency in terms of media buying and that sort of thing. We really have a strong focus on brand first, helping clients understand how they're uniquely positioned in the marketplace, and really what their story is, and the value they provide. And that's the core of what we do. And then obviously our design backgrounds, which are pretty rich in both business to business, professional services, as well as some product, but a heavy focus on professional services. Healthcare, being in Cleveland, it's a very strong market here for healthcare and innovation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wonder, why is it a strong...
Well, Cleveland Clinic is a world-renowned hospital, and I'm sure there's other spin-offs from that. Is that kind of what led that?
Yeah, the Cleveland Clinic, there's a competitor right down the street from them called the University Hospitals. And then along with some of the institutions, colleges and medical schools that are within a 10-mile radius, there's a lot of research that is not only spun off from a place like the Cleveland Clinic, but developed within those institutions too. There's also, a number of, a lot of money in state and federal money that goes to research and development. So it's not only, it's created a kind of an ecosystem for startups, particularly in the health, biomed sectors, medical devices, nanotechnology. So it's made a rich, again, ecosystem of support for the growth of these new technologies. So that's one of the things that we are focusing on also, is these early stage businesses that are receiving some of these fundings, public and private. There's a lot of angel investment too, that to help develop, these, everything from IT, medical device, software, and when we find a niche there that these companies, although are developing products that are pretty spectacular in terms of innovation, But a lot of times they're developed by entrepreneurs or doctors who really don't have a sense of brand or marketing. They can make a great product, bring it to market, but once it gets there, that's where we find we can be of great service and help by helping them understand, one, what branding is, but two, getting these companies that may have limited budgets, they're coming to market quickly. We can get them up and running with naming, visual identity, core brand foundation, website development, and give them a small package to help them successfully launch their companies and start to connect with their audiences.
That's a great niche, because not only the fact that they've got the funding in place, so that's always nice, but also, I mean, I've got a couple of friends that are doctors, and they don't teach any business courses or any kind of business within whether you're going to be a medical doctor or any PhD program. So I'm sure there's a huge need there.
Yeah, and just to touch on what Brian said, and just some homework that we've done across the board, and we found is early stage businesses tend to focus 80% of their effort largely on the product, on developing the product or their service, only 20% on the marketing or the brand. And so in many cases, and we've had clients that have been in this situation, is they get to the stage where they're ready to launch, or they already have some exposure in the market and they've never considered the brand. And so, they end up having to take a step back and consider who they are, long after they've already gone to market in some cases. And so the other opportunity too is to develop that brand for the investors when they're just seeking funding. It's not enough anymore just to go to an investor with a solid business plan. They want to see that you've got a strong sense of who who the company is and the culture you're trying to build and what you stand for.
Do you find, this is all really familiar, because when Kevin and I were running Headspace, I remember actually, I don't know if you remember this, Kevin, but we considered kind of honing in on a very similar niche, because a lot of our clients were like biomed companies or startups that were health related, and so we thought this would be a good niche to get into. We ended up doing Proposify instead, but it sounds like a great niche for all those reasons. You must find, like you're saying, a lot of those people have very strong educational background or medical technology, but branding, design is all kind of a little bit maybe over their head. They just have no experience with it, which is why they need you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just something that, when you're bootstrapping early on, you're trying to bring your product, or like I said, or your service to market, you're just not focused on branding. You're trying to optimize that product and develop it, whether it, like Brian said, whether it's an application or a medical device or what may be the case. You tend to focus most of your efforts on just getting that product ready for market.
Let me ask you this. So are you finding, and I'm asking this partly because my family are from Boston. My mom lives right in the hospital district, which is very much like what you're describing in Cleveland, as you probably know. So I'm sure that, a lot like the Cleveland Clinic and a lot of these, maybe these clients you do have, they must have sister companies or organizations in places like Boston and other medical meccas. So I'm sure that, are you getting into those regions as well, or are you pretty much just localized?
Well, like Mark said, this is, we're concentrating kind of 20% of our effort on this niche. And right now, since there is a lot of untapped potential in Northeast Ohio, we're concentrating locally at first. But I think there's a number of entrepreneurial support organizations here that have been modeling Cleveland, as a medical technology Silicon Valley, but they're really looking towards the models that happened in Boston, in and around Virginia and Minneapolis are some of the areas or cities that have been doing this for many years. So Cleveland's fairly new to it, and there's quite a lot of potential. So we're just going to look in our own neighborhood for a while.
That makes sense.
Has this when you started Boondock Walker, was this always the path you were going to take, or is this kind of like a fairly recent strategy in your company history?
It's really fairly recent. About 2 years ago, as we were preparing for growth, looking at our existing clients, just kind of looking at what, where are potential areas of growth for us. And, as Mark said, we have, service firms, we have manufacturing clients, manufacturing in Northeast Ohio as well. And we stumbled upon, we had worked with a few small medical technology companies here, and it just kind of bubbled up and was an obvious avenue for us to pursue.
I think part of it is just our own sort of passion for entrepreneurship. It's so gratifying to work with these early stage businesses, and while they're making critical decisions, and there's real gratification in seeing how brand can influence a company that early on. With some larger companies, it's a little hard. Sometimes can be harder to measure the impact of what you do. So it's exciting, like Brian mentioned, to take a client from 0 to 60 and get them up and running for an important event or an investor presentation or whatever it may be, to help accelerate that process and know that you played a critical role is pretty rewarding.
So many times too, agencies tend to they put their measure of success on how big or how recognizable their clients' names are. We've all done it. You want to get like that Coke and Nike and Ford and all those logos on your site. But I mean, really, you've said it, and I think we've heard it before, that for some companies, the names might not be as recognizable, but those are the companies that you can really make a difference in. Whereas if you get Coke or Nike as a client, you're just kind of like another cog in the wheel, right?
Exactly, right.
And we target companies, after we start to develop an early relationship, we know really if it's going to be lasting or if it's going to be rewarding or mutually rewarding. So I think obviously with our focus on brand, that's the type of work we want to do, help companies establish their core values, their elevator pitch, their messages to their audiences that are going to make them successful. And the old adage is, if they're successful, we'll be successful. So yeah, we'd love to, do work for Nike, Starbucks, and, those big name brands. But I think, over time, just being in Cleveland, Ohio, it's a very B2B type city. There's not a lot of retail. There's more retail in Columbus and Cincinnati with Procter & Gamble, et cetera. But so we've kind of reserved ourselves to, make a difference with these companies, and hopefully, especially the startups, is, one day that company could be a household name. So that's, like Mark said, the early stage is getting in, establishing that brand for them. It's not just developing a logo and a business card and a PowerPoint presentation. It's helping them define their culture, helping them, communicate and articulate their value proposition to their audience and see them successful.
Do you find that, how do you find that, as far as, is it challenging or not when you're talking to often people who aren't, they're maybe highly technical when it comes to what their particular business is? Let's just use the example of like a biomedical startup or something. Do you find that talking about brand, which, let's face it, brand is a term that's been thrown around for many years, and everybody seems to have a slightly different interpretation of it. Do you find you have to do a lot of explaining and a lot of selling to get them on board, or do they kind of already come knowing like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, I need your help?
Well, probably not a groundbreaking statement. I think that we have the most success with clients who are already educated on what brand is and they see the value of it, because it goes beyond what we can deliver. It's something that they have to internalize. If they're building a culture, if they're building a team, if they're defining what what the brand experience is, then it needs to be more than words on paper. It needs to be something that they deliver, to their stakeholders. So, it's become part of a qualifying process for us a little bit, where we can try to read between the lines and see what clients are really going to be engaged, or what clients may see it brand just a necessary evil. Then they're probably not going to have as much success in building out and seeing the value of what a strong brand can deliver.
Some of these companies that go through these entrepreneurial organizations, they may have been assigned mentors or even a board. And many times that's how we've been introduced to them. So, if they're overly technical and they don't understand brand, and they may be resistant, thinking, oh, my product will sell itself. they're getting other, very respected people's advice that say, hey, work with Boondock Walker, or yes, you need to develop your brand. This is why. So it's not always just us saying, hey, this is what you need, especially to somebody who may need a lot of education. But yeah, it goes both ways. There's many times a very long education cycle. But as Mark said, and it is completely true, if they don't grasp it, early on, then they probably never will. So it's best probably if we, don't work with them or bow out early. So that's the pre-qualification is big for that arena.
Now, when you're working with a company that is maybe highly technical, I'll use as an example. So back in the Headspace days, we had a client called Medmira, and they basically made like rapid HIV, HPV tests, and they sold them to like governments in Africa, and like their sales process was like huge, long sales cycles, very technical product. They weren't selling to the consumer, and I don't know if you're working with companies of a similar in a similar category, but like how important do you think branding is for those? We often think of branding when we think of the Nikes and Cokes and very consumer driven products. Is branding as important when you're selling something a little bit more technical, more medical related?
We would argue that it's almost more important, because with Nike or any retail product, Apple, well, there's several pieces to it, but it's a product that sits on the shelf, and then obviously the brand experience is a critical piece of that. So your relationship with the company, and then and how that if that product lives up to the hype. But on the service side, on the technical side, whether it's an application or a professional service in healthcare, the deliverable is not tangible. It is literally about the experience. So every experience that a customer has with that brand dictates what that brand is in their minds. And so it's almost, I think, it's a bigger challenge, but it's also more exciting, because when you have a customer who truly understands what it means to deliver on the brand promise, it really does require that their culture embrace that, and it be part of what they deliver every day. And so that's where brand foundation plays such a critical role, and that's exactly why we've sort of pursued the professional services, B2B, as Brian mentioned, path.
That's a damn good answer.
Yes.
I thought I stumped you, but apparently not.
We had that recorded. That's the most intriguing thing I'll say all day. It did, yeah.
No feral blackout.
Yeah. Just as a sidebar, I just wanted to throw in one of the things that we've done that's pretty exciting, just on the same sort of niche category of early stage businesses, is we've actually taken an equity role in a few companies that we've worked with. So clients who have come to us with something really exciting that we believe in, and we've got good chemistry, we've actually provided some services in exchange for equity. So, which I think goes a long way. It speaks volumes to them that we've got skin in the game, and we believe in what they're doing. So that's an exciting opportunity. Something it's exciting to be part of. Again, these early stage startups that they've got that spark of trying to make something, bring something to market.
I'd like to kind of talk about that for a few minutes. So you're taking equity in some of your clients, presumably the ones that you really believe in and that you want to have a stake in. I think oftentimes agencies get asked to take on equity from a lot of customers. I mean, how many times have we had people come to us who say, I've got an idea for an iPhone app. If you build it, you can have a stake in the company. They're basically looking for free work. Do you guys, how do you balance and weigh that, okay, I'll take equity and we'll do, maybe give them a discount or whatever, in some way, essentially buy your stake with your services, and balance that with the need for cash flow to keep your agency running?
Yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah, and the key to that, at least our current agreements have been where we have asked the client.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that kind of throws that on its head a little bit, because the clients really weren't looking for free work. We're working with a technology company called Cleveland Whiskey, and we approached them with that as well. And I call them a technology company because they are aging whiskey in a matter of days, not years. So they create this patented technology that is kind of it's doing really well. So when we approach them, taken aback a little bit. So in that scenario, it was us asking them as opposed to them looking for free work.
They had you at whiskey, didn't they?
They did.
Twist our arm.
We get paid in bottles now, so everybody wins.
Nice. But today we're drinking beer.
Right. Not the same.
Are you also investors in the root beer company?
We are not.
You might as well.
Okay.
We just plug them in the podcast.
Yeah, true. That's sort of shameful. We plugged them before Cleveland.
Well, actually, we weren't recording then, so the listeners have no idea what we're talking about. But you guys were talking about, is it your grandfather's root beer or just your father's root
Go
beer?
to clevelandwhiskey.com. That's better.
Yeah, that's what we meant to. That's what we
Right.
We'll switch gears on that then.
No artificial flavoring there either. And that's sort of a plug, but actually it's fascinating what they're doing. They have this process called pressure aging, and they're using all kinds of different exotic woods. So if you look at the vodka craze with all the crazy flavorings, I mean, most of that's artificial. But with the whiskey, the flavoring is extracted from the wood itself. There's no syrups or artificial flavoring that they're using, which is pretty awesome.
Kyle's got your website open. I noticed beer is mentioned twice on the Our Team section, so that's awesome.
Yes, we do have a client, a local brew pub, and
we also, it should be mentioned, we have a bar in our office.
We do have a bar, a martini bar at that.
Oh man,
we don't drink martinis as much as it's beer and whatever else we can open quickly.
Right.
Do you have any space you want to rent out to a small startup in Nova Scotia?
You guys looking? You can always stop by.
I didn't realize this call was the first part of a 12-step program.
I know.
That influence.
Surprise! This is your surprise intervention. Proposify is going to help do that.
Well, let me try to hide my alcoholism for a moment and get back on track with talking brands. So I want to know from you guys, because every branding company has a different process for how they work with their clients. So I'm going to assume that you have like a brand discovery meeting and you go through a series of questions at first to kind of understand more about your client. Do you want to kind of walk us through that a little bit?
We do. Our process is really about intimately understanding the client early on. And it's not, I know that a lot of firms have these sort of proprietary processes. And for us, it's really about spending a lot of time asking good questions. We'll go into client interviews, executive team interviews, staff interviews, and sort of thing, and gather as much insight as we can that way. But ultimately, I think the most value comes from sitting down across the table with leadership and anyone who engages with the brand every day, and just asking really solid questions about the deliverable. What is the brand promise, and what do you think clients value the most? And part of what we deliver is what we call an alignment of client needs and brand values. So what we do is we look at specifically what are those triggers, what are the pain points for a client's stakeholders. What are they looking for from that brand, and try to align with that. What are the values of that the brand provides? And so what that does is it gives the client company and their sales staff some really, really good tools and messages to leverage when they're out in the field, and they can quickly respond. They can respond to a stakeholder's needs, based on those pain points. So it's a really valuable exercise. It's, I think it's a lot deeper than a lot of times you'll see the exercise of, if you were a car, what kind of car would you be? And,
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, it's, maybe there's a place for that. I don't know. We don't get into too much of that. It's much more about, the authenticity of a brand. I think every client has a story, has a unique story, and it's in many ways we're sort of translators of a client's story, and we just spend a lot of time trying to unearth what that story is, and bring it to light in a way that's interesting and that's evocative and resonates.
And you don't ask any crazy questions?
You know, I don't know. Sometimes it just gets sort of trite when you talk about, you know, we've seen competitors, you're a couch, what kind of couch it would be. And it's just, I don't know, it just gets...
If you were a car,
yeah.
Would be a Jaguar or a Pinto.
What does that mean? I mean,
Nothing.
I think you can
mean
get to the
Pinto.
essence, whether a client is more serious or more informal, or, you know, their personality attributes, just by spending time with them. So no, we try to get away from some of the...
And actually having it at our bar, it's always opens up true character, I think. Kind of like I'm opening up this.
Well, I gotta ask.
Lowering their guard.
Wait, I gotta ask. Okay, who mentioned Pinto?
I did. Yes, I was born in 1967. So.
I was born in '64, and I'm always getting crap from Kyle for making the '70s analogies. Thank you, by the way.
Well, sometimes he goes back even further than that. But...
Wonderful time to grow up. No seat belts. Staying out till the streetlights came on when you're 6. You know.
And
Lots of drugs, no judgment.
Pintos actually would catch on fire too if you were.
That's right.
If
If there
red
is
was hit.
looking at us like, it's a Pinto.
Oh, I know what Pinto is. Well, I know what stuff is.
27.
I don't know what a Pinto is.
You know,
I heard it
What
before.
stuff is.
I know what stuff is.
Sorry, I got us off track again. My fault.
That was the first time I was ever corrected by a woman for saying she was too young, and she added 2 years to her age. I'm not 27.
Oh.
The only time you guys ever refer to my age is to refer to me as younger
How
than
young
I
you
am,
are.
and therefore I don't know more than I should.
That's not what we're.
Well,
I feel like we're the same generation, Megan.
I hope you did record that quote, though. I know stuff.
Oh,
Yes.
we recorded that.
Oh, big time.
That's going to be a click to tweet.
and I was hired right after.
Right. Set the bar very high.
I did. I really did.
Oh man, you know what? I was up really late last night, and I'm like not sharp today. I totally had a question. Kevin, you ruined the interview.
Yeah, well, we were talking about branding in the kind of airy-fairy questions about if you were a couch. That's what we were at.
Oh yeah. I guess it wasn't really a question. I was just going to say, you know, my background is a design. When I used to work in agencies before, you know, I started running my own businesses. I had to sit in on those branding meetings. I didn't really ask the questions, but I, you know, just listened, and I had to like design a logo or brand, you know, visuals around whatever we came up with. And I agree. I like those questions because they're fun, but they often didn't really translate into anything tangible from the design side.
No, agreed.
But some people would get, you know, some people loved answering those. It's just like, I don't know. People who tended to be a little bit more right side, a little more creative, tended to really like those airy-fairy questions, and then other people just were angry that you were asking them that. I'm paying you for this, for asking me this ridiculous.
Back to your point, I just don't think it gets to the heart of what if you're doing it right, you getting to the heart of what the brand represents. Again, it's all about delivering value and defining what that experience is. And so, you know, questions like that. I remember sitting in on a presentation where a designer presented 3 boards. This is a law firm, but they presented 3 sort of style boards, and the style boards were all based on styles of architecture. One was very modern, contemporary. One other one was traditional. And they basically said, "What style are you?" As if every company fits into one of the 3 styles, just like a couch or a car. It just seems sort of ridiculous.
You know, when I think of, you know, very popular or quickly growing startups, and I think of like Slack and Uber and kind of these companies that aren't like established brands like Apple, but they're becoming more and more well known. I do find that people don't usually use the term brand anymore as much as they use the term culture, and I've heard you guys say that a few times. Culture seems to be almost like the new brand. I don't know, am I wrong, or
No,
you guys find the same thing?
I think brand starts with culture. You've got to define the culture first. It's an inside-out initiative. You get that question a lot. I think brand, in terms of a brand compared to advertising, is branding. Advertising is just one touch point, one extension of brand. Whereas brand starts with culture. It's about the experience to deliver. You know, it's all of the messages. It's everything that is communicated, you know, to the outside world. And again, that starts internally. It's not a one-off campaign. So that's one of the things I think we spend a lot of time with clients on, is educating them that when we launch a brand foundation, it's not a once and done. This is something you have to continually invest in, and it touches everything. It's a customer service piece. It's a it's a product and service deliverable. It's all of those pieces, all of those things that touch that touch the brand fall under that same umbrella.
That was well said, and he had 2 beers in his hand while he
That's how the best answers come out.
Two-fisted drinker.
Eating my iPad with my nose.
So the 2 founders, you guys, I'll say you guys, and Megan, I mean, do you guys all have a similar role in new sales for the agency? Or, because I know, Megan, your actual title is Director of Client Relations and Business Development. So how does kind of the sales process work between you, Megan, and the 2 founders?
Well, so far, I mean, we've been lucky. I've only been here about a year, and so far we've operated mostly on referral. I would say up until recently, we were probably 99.9% referral based. But we've recently tried to take a more proactive role in business development, which, targeting more people and networking and finding more business opportunities. And the 3 of us kind of share resources, tips. We go to meetings together. I don't know if we have a more defined sales process, so to speak. It's more just casual, and these 2 especially do best in front of people. So when it comes to RFPs, we will occasionally respond to those if they make sense, but typically they tend to be, a cattle call, and unless you're in front of the person, you don't really get much out of it. So
don't get Kevin started.
Yeah.
Feels the same way.
Yeah, I'm twitching.
Yeah, exactly.
They get longer and longer each time we get them, pages and pages of just nonsense that they need you to answer. And when we all know that they're just going to go to the budget line at the end of the day and do an apples to apples comparison there. So
that's right. You have no opportunity to build that relationship unless you get chosen. And it's like, that's really the strength, part of what we provide is building that trust and relationship. So try to stay away
Mark
from
and I, we're like any, and that's one reason why I think, working with startups as part of our portfolio is we understand that, as a small business, we are a small business that, even business owners, we get caught up in the work. And, although we've been, organically bringing in customers through referrals, as business owners, even though we're designers by trade, we didn't go to business school, we certainly understand that we always have to be working on the business, and but we fall into those same habits, as other small business owners. So we do have a little bit of a structure, and as Megan said, we are, trying to get our name out there. We have a good reputation. That's great. Again, I think as long as we're keeping our work regionally, we're okay there. But as we try to branch out beyond Northeast Ohio and Cleveland, we'll need to be more proactive from a sales standpoint.
And I think it's also worth noting we've recently decided to be a little bit more selective in who we choose to take on as clients, rather than just taking any business that comes in the door, taking a step back and really thinking, do the personalities mesh? Do they value what we do? Are they going to kind of nickel and dime throughout the entire process? Are they going to be difficult? We've realized that sometimes, even we can be distracted by the large cash flow that could come from the client without realizing that it could take a lot of years off of our life by phone calls and constant hand-holding and all that stuff. So we're trying to really just find the right fit personally before we jump right into business relationships. I think that's a really important distinction, especially as of late.
I think part of the challenge with that too is Brian and I have always sort of avoided the account executive role because we've been so deeply involved with a lot of clients. A lot of agencies will sort of bring in the top guns to sell the account, and then once they're engaged, they'll throw and move the C and D team in, and so we've never operated that way, and we like to stay engaged and lead the client. So, it does become a challenge though when we're trying to work on the business and selling as well and promoting, and it does make it tough to try to manage both.
honestly, that was, I think, a big mistake that I made with Headspace, was just because I'm a designer by trade and like design and like being involved in projects, and actually, frankly, can be a little bit of a control freak. Don't look at me, Kevin. I would get involved in a lot of projects, and I think that was a mistake. If I was to do it again, I would probably try to get another, good designer in to just lead that and just step out of it completely. But I mean, how do you guys find it as designers yourselves?
Yeah, it's a challenge I think most design firms face. I think we're just so passionate about what we do that it's hard to step away. You want to make sure it's done right. The client's getting, what they deserve and what they're paying for, and more. So it's hard to take a backseat role. It's just a matter. It comes down to culture and finding the right people who share the same values and vision for what you're trying to accomplish.
Some of it depends too on how big you want to grow, right? Like if you intend to stay fairly small, then it's a little easier to just stay involved in every, not in every project, but in a lot of projects. And it seems to be the agencies that are looking more to really like just double their team every year, that they've got to treat it like a sausage machine,
Right.
Kevin, you look at me like you don't agree.
No, I just like the sausage machine thing. I remember we used to use that analogy.
Yeah, it's a terrible visual, but we get it. We get the analogy.
It's one of those metaphors you can just use for anything.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so Kevin, you don't disagree then?
No, I don't disagree.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
You're just thinking sausages.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Yeah. I got to ask you guys, where did the name come from? Boondock Walker.
I was just about to say, if you're good interviewers,
you get the story.
When are you going to ask about the name, and you have acceptable timing?
There you go.
Mark.
Oh.
Yeah, so Mark and I, we pass the baton back and forth when we get to tell the story. So
right,
exactly. I'll give it to Mark. I need to open up another beer.
So Boondock Walker is an innovation that was created many, many years ago by a World War II veteran. When he retired, he was an engineer by trade, and when he retired, he had a passion for fishing. And
up in Canada.
Yep. And of course, back then, boats were heavy fiberglass boats, and transporting a boat between the lakes was cumbersome. So he created this device that could actually fold up and be put into a boat, but it would actually had a motor and could actually pull the boat through the thicket, if you would. And so they called it the Boondock Walker. It was a way to portage a boat from one lake to another.
Walk it over the boondocks.
Nice.
So we love the metaphor. We were talking about metaphors. We love the metaphor that it stood for in terms of taking a company's brand from one point, through the woods, over the thicket, through the boondocks to another body of water,
and using innovation to get there.
Exactly. So in essence, Boondock Walker is a contraption.
It's a contraption
that is innovative and creative. So,
although every now and then we'll get a phone call to speak with Mr. Walker, or Mr. Boondock, which I think would be the coolest name. I am Boondock Walker.
Yeah, well, you should be like Brian Boondock and Mark Walker. I think you should just tell people that's your last name.
Yeah, it's sort of got a T. Boone Pickens.
T-Bone. Yeah.
T. Boone, remember T. Boone Pickens?
Yeah.
Or like a Texas Ranger, maybe. Boondock Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah. Played by Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not as tough, though.
Well, who is as tough as Chuck?
Right.
Thank you for being on the show, guys. Really appreciate your time and lots of valuable insights here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Are you guys picking up the tab?
Sure. We've got your mailing address.
All right, cheers.
All right, have a good holiday weekend, too.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Talk to you soon.
See you.
Bye. Let's get into it.
Let's talk about that recent interview.
Again, like I said, it was a fun interview. They were having a blast, drinking some nice beers, and they seem like they all get along great. It's a positive environment.
That's true.
As a matter of fact, you mentioned in the interview that we may want to set up shop there.
Well, just because they have a bar and they sponsor a whiskey brand or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Nice Midwestern accents, too.
Yeah, big time.
I noticed that. A little bit of De Beers going on. You know what I mean?
Yes. Now,
remember that old SNL skit? Da Bears.
Yep. I barely remember it, but
a little Midwestern going
you
on.
can pull out the brain cells there. Again, no questions again this week.
People don't care.
Yeah. Hope we have some people listening to this podcast.
The numbers say we do, but nobody asks questions.
Come on.
You can be on the show.
Not even a question, even just a comment.
I would like to hear an argument. That's what I would like to hear. You know, I'm a magnet for controversy.
Let's do it.
I want to hear somebody record their, little audio file of them saying, "Kevin, I think you're so stupid. I don't think anything you say is right." And I would like to just argue them on that.
Okay. Bring it on.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoyed the interview, and we'll be back next week for some more. We have a great interview lined up for tomorrow.
Yeah, who's that with?
I don't know. No, it's actually with a customer who is, I think, in Germany. So I hope he speaks English. I'm going to assume he speaks English. Until next time, keep fit.